ready for some football. I don't know about you. Who else could it be but your man Lou? Yeah.
The LouieTeeNetwork is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to our final Sunday night football overtime of the regular season. Week 18, AFC East on the line. Win and you win the division, lose, and you are a wild card going on the road. That was what was at stake in this game. Due to the loss by Jacksonville, Buffalo had already clinched a playoff berth, similar to the Miami Dolphins, who had already clinched. But now the division was still on the line. That's the biggest difference, is that Buffalo wasn't in a win and you're in, lose and you're out type of situation. They were already in. Now they just needed to see if they could clinch their fourth consecutive AFC East crown, get the home playoff game, and be the number 2 seed. It's amazing. And I talked about this. It's not rare. I mean, it's not often. It's very rare that you could either be the number 2 seed or you could be out of the playoffs altogether. That's generally not how this works. Okay. But that's where they found themselves coming into the day. But with the Jacksonville loss earlier in the afternoon, they already knew that they were in the playoffs. Now it's about, can we get the home playoff game and kind of pave a much easier path to the Super Bowl than having to go on the road for 3 consecutive to try to make it there. So this is a big game. And Dolphins fans have been saying all year long, this is what we do. We choke down the stretch. We don't play good December football into January, not expecting to win. We saw what they did last week on the road at Baltimore. And so this is not surprising. I've been on the Buffalo bandwagon. There were some struggles in the first half of this game, but there was one play in particular that led me to believe that Buffalo was going to win despite the foolishness that had transpired in the first half. And it was the tip pass that ultimately ended up going into the end zone and being caught by Trent Sherfield, excuse me. And that let me know Buffalo's going to win this game. And when something freaky like that happens early in a ball game, football gods are smiling down on you, and you're going to ultimately get it done somehow, some way. And because I wasn't, if you were with me live, I watched that play and I didn't see what had transpired. I just saw the ball kind of sitting in the air for what seemed like an eternity. And I'm like, who throws a pass like that into the end zone? Like, nobody throws a pass that high into the air. And the fact that it was in the air as long as it was, and it still made it to, I think, its intended receiver. I'm not sure if that's who he was initially throwing the football to or not. But the fact that it still got to him without a Dolphins defender getting to it first in itself is amazing, let alone the ball placement and where it ultimately ended up, where only Trent Sherfield can catch it, get his feet down, and possess it and score the touchdown. So it was a wild, wacky game. It felt like a family business affair between two foes that knew each other very well. And so you would think that the margin of error would be a lot tighter, but it was a lot of mistakes in this ball game both ways. And ultimately, the team with the best quarterback won the football game. And that's what it really boiled down to me, is, yep, Allen made mistakes in the first half, had the fumble in the second half, couldn't seem like they couldn't get out of their own way. But I've said this a million times, and I'll continue to stand on this. Josh Allen is going to make mistakes. He's going to, if you're a Bills fan, he's going to make you want to pull your hair out. He's going to make you want to scratch your eyeballs out of your socket. But I wouldn't trade him for anybody, any other quarterback in the league. And I sincerely mean that. If my team had Josh Allen, I would be so excited about what my team could do every single season, because I got that guy under center. And while he'll drive me nuts at times, and it'll be excruciating to watch sometimes, I know there's going to be way more good plays than negative plays. And I know when I need him the most, he's going to make plays for me. And you saw that again tonight. And It's why I have supreme confidence in the Bills making a run into the postseason. And I felt this way, and I told you guys this. After the loss to Philadelphia, they're going to make a run. They went into their bye week. Nobody was looking at the Bills. Everybody thought that loss to Philadelphia in overtime was the final nail in the coffin. I went in the opposite direction, and I said they're going to Arrowhead fresh off this bye. They're going to win. And they're going to run the table. I didn't think they would come back and win the division until I saw what the Dolphins were doing. Once the Dolphins lost to Tennessee on that Monday night, okay, you trying to lose this division. Okay, cool. I see you in week 18 with the division on the line, and I know what's going to happen then, right? And sure enough, you get to week 18, division's on the line, Bills have run the table, won 5 in a row, won the division, 4th straight AFC East Championship crown, and they are the hottest team in the AFC because Baltimore lost in week 18 to the Steelers in a game that they didn't need. They are the hottest team in the AFC going into the postseason. So there you have it. Excuse me. They're going to have to play better than they played tonight, though, in order to do what I said they were going to do, which is be in the AFC Championship game. But it's funny because when they go to Miami, for whatever reason, and I think Bills fans can attest to this, for whatever reason, they go to Miami and shit just falls apart for them. They rack up the yards, but they get in the red zone, and it's like they lose their minds. They do stupid shit. Remember they lost in Miami last year? Early in the season, it was hot as shit outside. Early in the season, the Bills had like 500 yards of total offense. The Dolphins had like 197 yards of total offense. Outgained them what felt like by 900 yards and lost the game because Josh Allen lost his mind in the red zone. They went for it on 4th down. He threw interceptions. He made mistakes. And they lost a nail-biter to the Dolphins last year in Miami early in the season. Remember that? That's what this game kind of felt like. Generally speaking, you go on the road, you go 2 for 5 in the red zone, and you turn it over 3 times. Normally, you don't win that football game. That's usually how that goes. But that's precisely what the Bills did and still came out with the victory, 21-14. How did they achieve that? Let's talk about the Bills here as they head into the playoffs as the 2 seed, and they'll host the Pittsburgh Steelers in Wild Card Weekend. First things first. Yeah, Josh Allen did some stupid shit with the football tonight. Let's start there because I want to get this out of the way so we can talk about all the good shit that came out of this game. But you got to start there. Like this game shouldn't have been as close as it was. You look at Josh Allen's statistics. He carved them up tonight. He missed a big throw to Stephon Diggs that would have been a touchdown. He's behind the defense by, and this is no exaggeration, he's behind the defense by 7 yards. He catches this, he walks in the end zone. And he overshoots him by 2 yards. So that's a miss. He throws the interception, and I think it probably was a miscommunication with Gabe Davis. They seem to always be miscommunicating for whatever reason. Had the miscommunicate. Well, it wasn't a miscommunication. He just didn't. Allen didn't see him in the Chiefs game, and then Gabe Davis goes one way, Allen throws it the other way against the Eagles, and that proved to be the difference in the ball game. You make that completion, game's over, you win. Instead, you settle for a field goal, you ultimately lose. I don't know what happened there. Gabe Davis goes inside, Allen throws it outside, it's picked off. That can't happen on the opening possession. It's a beautiful drive. You need to get points. And at worst, you come out of there with a field goal. You feel good about getting something on your first possession of the game. Instead, you turn it over, right? The second pick, I'm not as, up in arms about that one. It was a 3rd down. You were going to have to punt anyway. I don't think you were in field goal range. Whatever. Right? You're going out of bounds. You throw it across your body. It's a typical Josh Allen decision where you go, no, 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 no. And a lot of times you end up going, yes. At the end, that was one of the ones you go, no, 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 no. No, Josh, no. Right? But, I wasn't tripping off of that. Like I said, I think they weren't in field goal range anyway. And they were going to have to punt. So it acted as a pseudo punt. But the fumble where he just lets Christian Wilkins take it from him, What are we doing? What kind of amateur hour shit is this, man? What are we doing here, Josh? Seriously, what we dealing with here, Star? What we doing? Right? Come on, bro. That can't happen. That's an automatic field goal in a game that you're trailing at the time 14-7. No, you're not allowed to give it away like that. That's a hell of a play by Christian Wilkins. Don't get me wrong, but that can't happen. That's a no-no, right? I hated the quarterback keep on the final possession when you were trying to run the clock out to the short side of the field where his hand was out of bounds and the officials didn't see it. That's a blatant miss by the officials. You have to see that because that's the difference between this game potentially the Dolphins having even more time and, having a chance to win this thing versus the clock getting down to 2 minutes and essentially having the game come down to the Bills having one snap, and if they get the first down, the game's over, right? Totally different set of circumstances if you rule him out of bounds with 2 minutes and 40-something seconds left or 50-something seconds left, whenever that play ended. So you can't miss that. But I don't like that play call. You got all that space to the other side of the field. I don't want to hear shit about numbers, this, that, and the third. Run to where there's space. There was no space over there. He almost ran out of real estate, and then he touched out of bounds. It should have been out of bounds. That's a stupid play call, if you ask me. First of all, why aren't we just running it with Leonard Fournette? Like, what are we getting more hits on our quarterback for when we don't have to? Like, to me, you're just too cute for me. Like, just miss me with that. But that's nor here nor there. They got to come up with something else when they get into those short yardage situations. I love Josh Allen. I love the ball being in his hands, but we got to find something else because clearly your brotherly shove needs work. And if that's what you're going to go to, that jumping in the air shit, as we saw, it worked the first time. It did not work the second time. You're going to have to figure something out in those short yardage situations. If you can't come with something better than that, then turn around and hand it off or give me a naked boot with Josh Allen or, something creative. You're going to have to do something else. That shit was whack. And quarterback sneaks generally aren't as successful with taller quarterbacks. They're easier to stop because low man wins. That's why the brotherly shove is so successful. Like, a lot of people always keep talking about Jalen Hurts squatting a small house, and that helps. But he's also like a 6'1" quarterback. So he can get low, and then his guys can push him, and that line, is phenomenal. They create space, but it's his low center of gravity that makes it kind of work really effectively. Allen can't get but so low. So they got to figure some shit out because they were in those short yardage situations quite often tonight, and it looked disjointed. It looked very, very disjointed, and it almost cost you at the end of this game that you didn't get that last first down. So now that all of that, the negative stuff is out of the way. Oh, and some of the injuries, don't know the severity of any of them. But Johnson left the game with a concussion. One of your starting corners, who I told you when you got him via trade at the deadline, Rasul Douglas was going to be a difference maker for you. He had the big pick six against the Patriots last week. I told you this guy is quietly one of the best trade deadline acquisitions that nobody's talking about, right? Everybody want to talk about Chase Young and some of the other moves that were made. And I'm like, hey, quiet as kept. Rasul Douglas to the Bills might be the biggest trade at the trade deadline. And then he got hurt tonight. And that forced Dane Jackson outside. And I don't know if you can live like that. Christian Benford, my God, that has turned out to be a steal. He has been phenomenal for you guys. And I don't know where you'd be without him, personally. But outside, and I think you had your tackle leave the game. I'm not sure if he returned or not. So a number of injuries to keep an eye on. You also lost, I think Dotson got hurt tonight, if I'm not mistaken. And so that's another one to keep an eye on. Like, a lot of injuries this close to the playoffs, a little scary. We'll see what happens. But Josh Allen was phenomenal. Outside of the mistakes, outside of the missed, opportunity to Diggs for the touchdown that he didn't hit. Outside of the 2 interceptions, the first one was horrific. And then the fumble in the third quarter, which you just can't have, which, again, these are big plays. Don't get me wrong. But damn it, boy, he made some throws. He had the big third down scramble on 3rd and 13 to throw down the sideline to Khalil Shakir. And how about him? Like, I talked to a lot of Bills fans early in the season, and they were kind of down on Gabe Davis. And whatever the case may be, Davis hasn't had the type of year that maybe they were expecting. And maybe they know who he is as a player now. Maybe they were expecting him to be something that he's not. Whatever the case may be, a lot of them were kind of like lukewarm on Khalil Shakir, and he's stepping up, clearly. Tonight was a big game for him, and he's had some big games this season. And it can't come at a better time because they're going to need him if they're going to make that postseason run that I think is in there. They're going to need 10 to step up. What we do know is that these tight ends are going to be huge, and Dalton Kincaid is turning into a monster right before our very eyes. We said it was one of the better tight end draft classes that we've seen in recent memory, and we're seeing these tight ends make a huge impact. Kincaid has been one of those guys. Obviously, Sam Laporta in Detroit is another. He got banged up today. Hopefully that's not a serious injury, but anytime a guy gets carted off, I'm always nervous. That said, we saw the tight ends play a pivotal role in the victory tonight, especially the rookie Dalton Kincaid. I actually want to see what his numbers turned out to be tonight because he was such an impactful player tonight. Dalton Kincaid, 7 catches, 84 yards. Khalil Shakir, who I mentioned, 6 catches, 105 yards. He was massive. And Dawson Knox had 2 catches for 22 yards, and of course, the big touchdown grab. So the tight ends are going to be huge, but you're going to have these receivers, specifically Khalil Shakir and probably Trent Sherfield. Probably going to have to step up, give you a little something, and they did tonight. And you're going to need that moving into the postseason, especially if that Gabe Davis injury is significant. And I never like to see a dude get injured and then come back after halftime in civvies. That's usually a bad sign that that's serious, and he never had a chance to come back. So that tells me that he might not be back next week either, whatever the diagnosis is. But Allen was locked in. Like, you take away the mistakes and the miss to Diggs, he was throwing some BBs, man. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. What did he end up? 30 of 38? What's the number? 30 of 38 for 359? I mean, what are we talking about, right? Yeah, I know there's 2 interceptions. Yeah, I know there's a fumble in there. Yeah, there was a miss to Stephon Diggs, but are you kidding me? 8 misses in 38 attempts. And then his legs and what he brings to the table from that standpoint. How about this defense, though? How about the Buffalo defense? And we'll get to special teams here and Deontay Hardy here in a second. But how about the defense? Let me make sure I'm getting the right name. I feel like it's Deontay Hardy from New Orleans, but let me make sure that I'm getting it right. Yeah, Deontay Hardy. I just want to make sure I'm not calling him the wrong name. How about this defense stepping up? I'm gonna be honest with you. I was nervous when they got the stop because one of my biggest pet peeves this year has been Buffalo's late game defense. They have been as leaky as you can get in late game situations this season with the game on the line. Whether they actually give it up like they did against New England, or they allow the team to come dangerously close like they did against the Giants or Tampa Bay, for that matter, or Philadelphia and actually lose. I or Kansas City, right? Even though that one didn't get dangerously close, but I've never been comfortable with them in those situations. Or Denver, like that Denver game when they did lose, right? I just have never really been comfortable with them in these situations because they haven't held up this season. So when they got the Dolphins got that stop, I was like, uh-oh. Are we going to overtime? And the defense stepped up. Now, they still got an issue. They can't get to the quarterback. Going all the way back to 13 seconds and the loss to the Chiefs in the AFC Divisional round a few years ago, that's always been the problem. And that's why they went out and got Von Miller. That's why they've drafted, all of these guys as edge rushers, whether you're talking about AJ Epineza or you're talking about Gregory Rousseau, Boogie Basham, all of these guys, whomever. We go down the long list, and it just hasn't worked. Like Ed Oliver on the interior, Jordan Phillips on the interior, guys that you brought in via free agency, whatever the case, you just can't get to the damn quarterback. And I still think that's an issue. But I did think they forced Tua out of the pocket off of his spot, which is important when you're playing against him because he's a rhythm passer. And if you let him get to his drop, set his feet, and deliver, he's dangerous. So I did think they did that, and I have to give them credit for that. But it was the back, and this is what I've said about McDermott and what they do defensively. They do as good a job as anybody of coaching up the back seven. They're linebackers, and it doesn't matter. They had Braylon Spector from Clemson in the game. Like, they had, and I'm not calling Rap trash because he can play football. But that's like the third option at safety for them. That means a couple of dudes had to go down to injury before he got in the game. Understand the injuries that they have in the secondary. And they're still getting maximum production out of that back seven. They do wonders with that back seven, like nobody's business. And they made it tough on Tyreek Hill. Every time he was in that position to catch the football, he knew a hit was coming. And I think that's why you saw some drops from him tonight. A little bit of interference, a little physicality. That's what you got to do to him. But it wasn't a whole bunch of, green grass and open space for him to operate, catch and run and do damage. They kept everything in front of them for the most part. They did a really good job of tackling. They struggled now with Devin Achane, and who hasn't this season for the most part. But they shut that shit down in the second half, right? He was a non-factor in the second half. He had a huge first half. But credit that defense. They shut the faucet off in the second half. The Dolphins didn't score a single point in the second half of this game. They damn near didn't even possess it in the third quarter. Credit the Bills' offense, but the defense got off the field in the 3 and out as well. So you got to credit the Bills' defense for holding an offense like Miami's to 14 points, for overcoming the mistakes, because that breaks a lesser team. You make those types of mistakes over and over and over again, and that breaks a lesser team. This is why I think they're going to make it to the AFC Championship game, because they're battle-tested. They've been here. They've seen the ups. They've seen the downs. They've had the heartbreak. They've had the close losses. They've had the close wins. They know how to get it done. And tonight was another example of that. Wasn't pretty. Damn sure gritty, and most importantly, it was a dubski. And then, of course, special teams. What more can I say about Deontay Hardy's? Was that 95 yards? I mean, I think he caught that bad boy at the 5. Let me check, because it's rare to see a punt return for a touchdown from that far out. It was 90-something yards for sure. The question is, was it 95? It was a 96-yard punt return. Like, bro, who does that? Who fields a punt at the 4 and runs it back for a touchdown? Like, remember the old rule? Nobody even listens to that rule anymore. Like, old school punt returners would tell you set your heels up at the 10-yard line, and if it goes over your head, you let it go. These young boys don't give a shit about that rule. I saw a dude catch the ball at the goal line into the end zone and brought that bitch out like it's a kickoff. Like, what are you doing, dude? That's a touchback. I know this much. If you catch that bitch inside the 5, you better get a damn good return. I ain't saying you got to break it for a 96-yard touchdown, but you better get that bitch outside the 20, or I'm going to bust you in your shit. You won't be running no more damn punts back the rest of that game. And he took the bitch to the house. My goodness. That changed the entire complexity of the game. That game was in the Dolphins' hands for the taking, and that Hardy punt return flipped everything. It took all of the air and wind out of their sails. They went 3 and out right after that, gave it right back to Buffalo. Buffalo marched it down the field, scored the touchdown. And you could tell Miami was broken. Their spirits were broken after that. It's almost like they were just waiting for something bad to happen so they could lose the game. And once that punt return happened, it's like they let go of the rope. That's a huge play. And he can do that. Deontay Hardy can do that. That's part of the reason they brought him to Buffalo. And I can't speak enough about that impact, because special teams is something that you don't talk about enough in this league until something happens. Well, something happened in this game. It's a hell of a play, right? And let me bring up one more thing, and I'm going to mention it too when I talk about the Dolphins, but you got to get something on that possession before the half. Again, the first half was just abysmal for the Bills. Abysmal. With the 2 turnovers and then that play where you don't get anything before the half. First of all, I guess we'll address that when we get to the Dolphins, because that was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen in my life defensively. But we'll get to that when we get to Miami. I know Johnson got rocked at the goal line essentially, and got stopped from getting in, and that's a hell of a tackle by the 2 defenders and Jerome Baker coming in at the end with the forearm shiver to make sure he was denied the end zone and access to it. But if you're Josh Allen, you can't throw that football short of the end zone unless you know your dude is getting in. You got to put that ball in the end zone, or you got to throw it away so you can kick the field goal. You got to get something out of that. Luckily enough for him, that didn't come back to haunt them, but too many mistakes in the red zone. Like I said, 2 of 5, and it wasn't just any 2 of 5, because generally you go 2 of 5. Well, the 3 times that you missed out on touchdowns, at least 2 of them resulted in field goals. Like, these were missed opportunities where you didn't get shit. End of the half on one, interception on another, strip fumble on the other. Like, 3 times you went in the red zone and came away with 0 points. That's a losing formula in the playoffs, by the way. You might could get away with that shit against Pittsburgh, especially with no TJ Watt. Y'all gonna run those boys. Like, this was a gift. Winning this, that's why it was so important to win. Y'all gonna run the Steelers next week. Run those boys out of the building. Try that shit against whomever you play in the divisional round. It's going to be a different result. I'm just saying. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. If you're Miami, what a disappointing end to the season. A month and a half ago, you were clear runaway favorites to win this division. A month ago, you were still in the driver's seat. I contend that loss on Monday night to Tennessee was the beginning of the end. Once you did that, I said, oh, you ain't trying to win the division. You want Buffalo to come take this shit from you. You don't know what to do with this. Are you looking at is this the division? No, I can't accept this. I don't know what to do with this. Buffalo's like, well, let me get it. I know what to do with it. Let me have it. Come on, pass it to me. I got it. So it never felt like you were going to win this game. Never. And offensively, it seems like you've been somewhat out of sorts here of late. Even the Cowboys, when it wasn't a clean performance offensively. I mean, you got it done, but that wasn't a great performance offensively. And so it feels like the offense is a bit stagnant right now. And I saw the same thing from Sean McVay in his, I want to say it was his third year, maybe it was his fourth year, where it felt like the league kind of caught up to him a little bit and he had to readjust. I'm not saying that's what's happening to Mike McDaniel right now, but it feels like a lot of what they do, teams have seen it enough. And when you run the kind of system that they don't run a lot of different shit. They just run it out of different sets and get to it in different ways. So when teams are able to key in on what it is you do, and the book's out on Tua, you just got to get him off his spot. Tua's not a creator off schedule. He's not a playmaker. He's a distributor. So if he's back there comfortable, you're toast. And he doesn't need much time. He's got one of the quickest releases in football. Drop to release. I don't know if you get any faster than Tua. That ball's out of his hands. The key is disrupt their timing, make him hold it a tick longer. And if you can do that and you force him off his spot, now he has to move, especially if it's to his right, you got him. But they got to figure out how to get their offense back on track. With all the injuries to their defense, and they're really thin at defensive end now, and I don't know the injury to Andrew Van Ginkel and how serious that is, but they'll get some guys back next week. Brandon Jones was outstanding tonight. While it's on my brain, let me just bring that up. God, he was everywhere, it felt like, specifically in the run game, on those tosses out wide. He was in the backfield, it seemed like, all night long. All night long, all night, all night long, all night, all night. But they're going to get some reinforcements back next week, more likely than not. Hopefully they'll get Waddle back. Hopefully they'll get Xavier Howard back, et cetera, et cetera. But they got to get this offense back on track. And Waddle helps a ton with that. He does. Tyreek Hill's limping around a little bit, and so that doesn't help. I just think they're really banged up and they're really limited right now, it feels like. Defensively, you hung in. I mean, it wasn't pretty, and as I talked about with Josh Allen's numbers, they really did move it, did Buffalo. They took up the whole third quarter. You barely even had a shot at it. And so the defense, this was what you call a classic bend but don't break defense. They literally were very, very, flexible tonight. They were bending all over the damn place, but they never broke, right? And so whether it's turnovers that were forced, fourth down stop, the stop before halftime, you name it, they did it to keep this ball game as close as it was, because they really should have got blown out tonight, if we're being honest. Buffalo dominated this game. It should not have been 21-14. The mistakes are what kept the Dolphins in this game, but they created those mistakes. Vic Fangio was aggressive, and he came after Josh Allen, and he forced the issue. And so, again, credit must be given when it is due, and it wasn't a pretty performance by any stretch of the imagination by this Dolphins defense, but they hung in there. They gave themselves a shot. But the injuries are becoming too much to bear. I mean, obviously, Jalen Phillips and and Bradley Chubb are done for the season. Now Van Ginkel is down, and you're getting pretty thin on that defensive front. I mean, you brought in Melvin Ingram to give you a little bit of depth because of some of the injuries, and now he's having to play a whole heap of snaps. And you're going to have to try and figure it out, right, on the fly with this front, because that was one of the strengths of this defense was, hey, we can get to your quarterback. We can make life a living hell for you up front because we can come at you in waves with Agba coming off the bench and et cetera, et cetera. Like, we can come at you in waves. You know, one of the most underrated players in the league is Zach Sealer. Right? Nobody talks about him and his impact inside next to Christian Wilkins, but Zach Sealer is like what Justin Smith used to be for Alden Smith and those guys on the inside, right? Like Justin Smith, no one really talked about what he used to do, but he was like the linchpin of that defense in San Francisco once upon a time. And I think that's what Zach Sealer is for this defense. But solid effort. But got to stop when you needed it at the end. Just didn't get enough from your offense. That's what it really boils down to. I mean, again, you can't play the way you played defensively tonight, and I don't think you will because you'll have some of your pieces back. You can't play the way you played tonight, minus the turnovers, and expect to beat somebody. Literally, this was the defense you played against Baltimore a week ago, except Buffalo turned it over. That's the difference. If Buffalo would have scored instead of turning it over, they scored at least 30-something points. They might even put up 40 tonight. I mean, they still scored 21 points. Listen to what I'm saying. They still scored 21 points. Granted, you know, one of the touchdowns came on a 96-yard punt return. I'm aware. But they still scored 21 points, going 2 of 5 in the red zone, and all 3 of the missed opportunities in the red zone were turnovers. No points. A stop before the half, a Josh Allen interception in the end zone, and a fumble that was forced on the third down where Christian Wilkins literally took the ball from Josh Allen. You're at least coming away at a bare minimum with 10 points, possibly 13 if you don't get the stop. If he just throws that thing out of bounds, 13 more points added to the score total, and it's 34-14. Now we're talking about a totally different game. That's a bare minimum. So you got to clean that shit up. You got to be better defensively. But at the end of the day, you're still in the playoffs. You still got a shot. Kansas City scares no one these days. You're fully capable of going in there. You had a shot over in Germany earlier this season when you lost 21-14. Same score you lost tonight. But you're going to have to score. That's a really good Chiefs defense. Just like the one you saw tonight. Very well coached, very disciplined. You're going to have to play a lot better than what you've been doing down the stretch to have a shot. But you played them already. You're going to know what to expect. Now you just got to execute. Let's get to the comment section. See what you guys are talking about. Juan Gotti talking sports. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes? 10 said, we heard the disrespect. Pitt said, we in, Lou. Yeah, I thought about that earlier as I was watching Jacksonville lose. And I was like, damn, they actually going to get in this bitch. Because there was no way that I envisioned Jacksonville losing. Just no way, right? And I didn't realize Ryan Tannehill was starting. And not that that would have changed my mind at all, but it would have made me pause for a second because I knew he would have been very capable. I was expecting a young boy to be out there, one of them. And I knew Levis was banged up. And I should have known that they were going to go to him when I heard the rant that Vrabel went on today when they asked him about winning. And he was like, losing fucking sucks. It sucks. Like, once he went on that little, I was like, okay, they trying to win this game. And I should have known at that point, if Tannehill's starting, they're going to have a shot. I didn't expect Jacksonville to come out as flat as they did, though. I mean, Lawrence was horrible today. And, you know, people were making excuses for him. And I'll grant him the shoulder injury. You know, he's been a warrior all season. He's played through pain. He's played through injuries. I won't ever forget the Thursday night game against the Saints where we watched him get, folded up like a pretzel 4 days prior. I believe it was that game, and come out and somehow still play on Thursday Night Football. Or that might have been the Monday night game against the Bengals where he got folded up like a pretzel and he still played the next week. And I thought he was going to be out 2-3 weeks, and he came back and played the next game. But I remember he was dealing with something that Thursday night game against New Orleans. Didn't think he was going to play, tested it out, decided to give it a go, and was spectacular. He's gutted it out all season long, but those boys started 8-3. Like, literally, they did what Tennessee did last year, and Tennessee finished them off like they finished off Tennessee last year. Like, it was almost like it came full circle, like a 360-degree turn, right? Last year, Tennessee started like 7-3, 7-4, fired their GM after the Eagles game, and didn't win another game the rest of the season. And then they played Jacksonville in week 18 for the division, and Jacksonville beat them and went to the playoffs. This year, Jacksonville's 8-3. They're sitting on top of that division. Nobody's even close. And then they start losing games left and right, losing the teams they got no business losing to. And now they got to fight for their life at the end of the season, and they got to go to Tennessee to get a win, and they couldn't do it. That was a crazy game. And it sucks. If you're a Steelers fan, you're happy to be in, but no TJ Watt. So his brother revealed that it's a grade 2 MCL sprain, but he still ain't playing. You know what I'm saying? So that's their best player, and it's not even close. And they're not going to have him. Like, I don't see how they can beat Buffalo unless Buffalo beats themselves. And you're more likely to get Buffalo to beat themselves on the road than you are at home. So good luck with that. But Pittsburgh is in, man. And there was a conversation, and I saw like Adam Schefter this morning was talking about Mike Tomlin and whether he would sit out a year or this, that. Like, he's not getting fired from the Steelers. That's not happening. He's not going anywhere. Now he's in the playoffs. So definitely not going anywhere now. Even if there was a discussion, he's not going anywhere now. All right. Let's get to the comment section, see what y'all talking about. Let's see. Let me check something real quick. All right, so Arthur Smith is the first Black Monday casualty. He is officially gone. And let the coaching carousel begin. Shout out to Bernard Douglas real quick for the big donation via Cash App. Really appreciate you, Bernard. I'm going to give you another shout out too when we get to a Washington video in case you're not watching this. But just wanted to say thank you so much for the generosity. Can't thank you enough, man. Really, truly do appreciate you and your gratitude. Arthur Smith is down. I repeat, Arthur Smith is down. So we one coach down. Trust me, there will be at least 4 or 5 more before this thing is all said and done. I think Matt Eberflus is going to be gone. We know Ron Rivera is going to be gone. The Panthers already have a vacancy. The Raiders have a vacancy, but I think they're going to stick with and they should. I think the lesson has been learned from the last time. I'm adamant about learning from your mistakes. And so I think Antonio Pierce will remain the head coach there. But Chicago, and the Chargers have an interim, right? So Panthers, Chargers, Falcons, Bears, Commanders, and Patriots. So that's 6. And then you have to throw the Raiders in there, even though I think they're going to stick with Antonio Pierce when it's all said and done. So I think it's going to be 7 vacancies when it's all said and done. Any more than that, and I'll be surprised. That means somebody got fired that I didn't think. Like Vrabel never thought he was getting fired, even if they had lost this game. They just beat them. He's not getting fired. His name had came up. Him and Tomlin's names came up. I was like, get out of here. Those guys aren't going anywhere. But first casualty, Arthur Smith. John Wynn says, the things that annoy me the most are NFL announcers from CBS and Fox kept showing playoff picture and winning scenarios. Like, I get it. Can they stop showing the playoff pick already? But no, so this time of the year, they're going to show it a million times because everybody wasn't watching the game from the opening kickoff. Some people came in 30 minutes into the game. Some people joined in, midway through the second quarter. Some people came in at halftime, after halftime. You don't know when somebody came in to watching the game. Like, you can't assume everybody watched the game from the point where you started watching the game. So they got to keep refreshing that. They got to keep letting people know every time they go to a game break. If there's a game that impacts the game that you're currently watching, they're going to refresh that and say, hey, here are the playoff scenarios. Here's what has to happen. This team needs this to happen. Because not everybody's keeping up with that stuff, right? So you just got to keep that in mind. Let's see. Cam G says, don't know if you brought this up before, but it's time to have a serious conversation about TJ and JJ Watt and who's better. I mean, both of them were beasts. Both of them are going to be Hall of Famers. I think it's ultimately going to be TJ because TJ is, I think, going to have longevity. Like, JJ was always hurt, especially towards the back end of his career. But there was a level of dominance that JJ Watt had. It's easy to kind of dismiss now because we're living in present day. But if you go back 8-9 years to JJ Watt's prime and just remember what this man was doing, there was like a 4 to 5 year stretch where he was the most dominant force in the NFL on the defensive side of football. So I think when it's all said and done, it's going to be TJ, but it's still JJ right now. Like, he still has a ways to go to get to where his brother ultimately ended up. Like, don't forget, JJ Watt retired in Arizona his last year with 12.5 sacks. He could have played more football if he wanted to. He had 12.5 sacks his final year in the NFL. Like, he went out with a bang. Like, yo, I can still do this shit. Just so you know, I can still do this shit, but I don't want to. Kevin writes, Lou, we got another one. He was so disrespected this offseason. People forgot how talented he was pre-draft. How do you view us going against the Cowgirls? Where can we beat them? So just for the record, I had the Packers making the playoffs before the season started. I had them winning the division. So I will say that. I did not have them making it in a wild card capacity. That said, I've always been a Jordan Love fan. Y'all know that. I've always felt like he was super talented. And I didn't think you were going to make the playoffs, though. After watching this team and seeing the situation play itself out, this is still a very young football team. And it's still so young that it's the blind leading the blind. That said, where the Cowboys are vulnerable right now is in that secondary. They had an injury to Stephon Gilmore today. Don't know the severity of it, but if he can't go, it's a pretty thin secondary, right? Now you're going to have to protect up front. If you can't protect up front, you're going to have issues. But if you can protect up front, and if you have any kind of physicality in the run game, you can run at Dallas. If you're physical enough, they're light. You can run on these boys, right? You can run on Dallas's defense. So that's another place where you can take advantage of them. And if you can protect Jordan Love, you can, get down the field and have some opportunities. But what I worry about with y'all is defensively. Do you have enough to slow them down offensively consistently? Because while your defense played well today, it was the Bears and it was Justin Fields. Your defense has been much maligned this season. You've been trying to fire Joe Barry every other week, and the Cowboys are still good on offense. And if you don't come with your A game, they'll light you up and they'll score 38. Quick, fast, and in a hurry. So that's what I worry about. But you're fully capable of beating them. Fully capable of beating them. Will you beat them? Probably not. Probably not. But you can give them a run. You can give them a run. And I would not be shocked if you did beat them. Wouldn't be shocked in the least. But it starts, to me, up front. You got to block their front. And if you can do that in the pass game, and you can really, if you can neutralize them in the run game and keep it balanced so that Jordan Love doesn't have to do it on his own by himself, you got a shot. Because if you can control it on that side, you'll keep Dallas's offense off the field and limit the amount of opportunities that they have, and it'll give you a shot. But if you're going 3 and out, if Jordan Love is turning it over, if you're giving it to them too often and your defense is having trouble, and get out of control quick. Looking forward to it, though. Niners fan writes, why are we still allowing officials to eyeball the spots in crucial situations like 4th and 1? Why can't we get a computer camera to take the human error out of it? I don't know. I don't know if I even want that. I mean, I get it. You would think with all the technology that exists that we could get something that could be a little bit more accurate in these situations. But I've always said this. The officials don't get enough credit. We kill them when they make a mistake and they do something wrong and everybody can see it, but we don't give them nearly enough credit. They get that shit right like 80% of the time, 80 to 85%. They get these spots correct. Yeah, they might be a hair off here or there, a few inches here or there. Rarely do we see an egregious spot where you go, whoa, whoa, whoa. And if it is egregious, usually replay comes in and fixes it. Like, it's usually rare that you get an egregious spot and it's not corrected in some way, shape, or form. I don't really have that big of an issue with it, to be honest with you. I guess because I'm somewhat of a purist, and I do this in all sports. I don't want robot umps in baseball, right? But if you're a big balls and strikes guy, and then that might be your thing. Like, you want a set strike zone, know exactly what you should or shouldn't swing at. I just like consistency. If you call in a high strike, start the game calling the high strike and don't stop calling the high strike. And I know if you call in the low strike, okay, I just need you to set that precedence from the jump, and I know what I got to swing at, what I got to fight off, what's the strike, so I'm not caught looking. You can't call the high strike in the 1st and 2nd inning and not call it in the 5th and 6th inning. And so I don't want to guess. I just need to know, right? I have no problems with that. And with these officials, for the most part, I think they do a solid job, man. A really good job. Not a solid job, but a really good job. But to your point, you would think that there would be some sort of technology that you could have. The closest that we've gotten are the pylon cams that kind of give you that look straight down. But you would think that there would be something a little bit more concrete that they would be able to use to determine where the ball is. They still piecing together angles like it's 2005 on a replay, like 7 different angles to figure out where the ball, like, God forbid the ball, you got to get to a spot that's not a line, right? It's easy when it's like, oh, you got to get to the 35, right? Okay, that's easy to see. Did you get to the 35 or not? But what happens when the line to gain is the 25 and a half? Can't tell that shit because they do put the ball in between the numbers. Like, it's not always on a number. Like, you could be at the 24 and a half yard line. They're not gonna say that, but that's where the ball's spotted, and you need 10 yards. I mean, that's when the shit gets tough. Swifty. Right? So Bills won a tough one. It was a tough fought game. Both teams seemed like they had numerous injuries in this bloodbath before the playoffs. It was a game that was hard fought, and both sides had some injuries that could linger into the postseason and be really detrimental to their causes. We'll see what the extent of these injuries are. The one that troubles me the most for Buffalo, well, two of them, Dotson and Gabe Davis, neither returned to the game. So Gabe Davis is huge because you can not love him. He doesn't separate this, that, and the third, but he's still a factor. He's a big target. Without him, the only big targets you really truly have are your tight ends and Trent Sherfield. So you lose a lot in not having Gabe Davis out there. And Dotson has been playing well alongside Terrell Bernard, being thrusted into the action without Matt Milano. And so Braylon Spector being out there, like, yeah, got it done tonight though. But for the Dolphins, it just seems like it's one injury after another, after another, after another for them. It's like it's like it's contagious or something. Steel City, right? I knew we were getting in. You said it. Now you said you thought Buffalo was gonna lose. Like, Buffalo ain't losing, but you said you were getting in. You called it. He said Tomlin's voodoo magic never fails. I love it, Steel City. I love it. Only problem is that we're going to get destroyed at Buffalo, and I do agree with that assessment, unfortunately. And I hate to see it, but yeah, I do believe you're going to get beat up pretty good at the hands of the Bills on the road next week. But you got in again, and people like me are going to hold that over your head when you start talking that shit about Tomlin. You made it to the playoffs with Mason Rudolph last year, and it's going to piss you off even more, Steel City. Hey, go ahead, man. RHS Chess, excuse me, writes, if you have the opportunity to attend a private dinner with Ron and he's willing to speak his heart out about extremely buns, about anything, what would be your top 2 to 3 questions? That is really interesting. I would have to sit down. If you told me I could only ask 2 or 3 questions, I'd make it 2 really good ones. I'd have to sit down and think about what I want to know most. Ron, look, we already know Ron has no problem spilling his guts. So that's if you ask him something, he'll tell you, right? So we know that's not an issue. But what do you really want to know? I would clearly want to know how much of him delegating to Eric Bieniemy does he think delegating to Eric? Well, does he think that was a mistake first and foremost? He'll probably say no, but clearly, like, I know y'all seen Logan Thomas's quote today. Not a surprise, I had already read it, and then Condo Miss Perry sent it to me, and I asked her, was she surprised by that comment? We all knew that the players weren't really comfortable. We read an article. John Keim wrote an article earlier this season where, and I told you Keim had said this in passing, almost like a throwaway line, and I was like, whoa, John, wait, what do you mean he has to remind the team that he's in charge? What are you talking about? But Keim laid it out for us in an ESPN article probably 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, where he pretty much said that players were really frustrated with the way things had gone this year because EB essentially was running the show. And he set all of the practice times, and remember he had changed their off day. Remember they used to be off on Tuesdays, and he changed the off day to Monday, and then they were back at work on Tuesdays. Remember that he had changed the time for their treatments because it ran into their meetings and stuff like EB came in and changed up a lot of shit. And not everybody was on board with that. And again, you can get anybody to buy into anything that you're selling if you're winning. Nobody will question you when when it turns into dubs, you know, when all the adjustments, all the sacrifices, all of the shit that you got us doing, if it turns into wins, you won't hear a peep out of anybody. It's when we start losing, now I got an issue with this. Why are we doing this shit and we losing? That's what happened to Matt Patricia in Detroit. Everything was all cool when he first got there and he kept doing the Coach Booyah Boyu thing where he would just flash the rings like, hey, y'all shut up and just listen to me. I know what to do. And yeah, well, Coach, why are we still beating the shit out of each other on Saturday and we got a game on Sunday? Hey, just shut up and do what I tell you to do. And then eventually when you 2-12 and the players looking around, why the hell are we beating the shit out of each other in December at practice and we still getting our ass beaten these games? And at some point, your coach, your players just, they turn on you. It turns into a mutiny. Like, I'm not doing this shit. It never turned into a mutiny, but it felt like the players quit. Felt like they quit. So I would definitely ask him, does he regret, delegating as much as he did to Eric Bieniemy? That would be one of the questions. And I'd have to think about what else I really want to truly know. If it's only 2, if it's 3, I could come up with 3 really good questions. RHS Chess writes, cheers to Extremely Buns getting fired tomorrow. Please do the honors by imitating his cheesy smile one last time. I'll start. You end it. I'm all ears. Eric Bieniemy is a piece of work. I will say that. He is definitely an acquired taste. He's definitely acquired taste. I hope he gets another opportunity somewhere next year. I got no ill will towards him. Wish him nothing but the best. But it didn't work here. And we thought he was what we needed. But it turns out that not only was he not what we needed, but he wasn't going to be able to overcome all of the other shit that was here. The Jack, the Ron, the faux culture that they thought that they had changed, but they really didn't. It was a lot that was going to have to be overcome here. That even if he brought his best shit here, our defense was ass. It wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered. RHS Chess writes, not getting Caleb is May actually worth the second overall pick, though? Should we go for MHJ to get the most out of the second pick and pursue Cousins? Immediate Super Bowl contenders. I don't know if getting Kirk Cousins coming off of whatever injury, Achilles or ACL, whatever he's got, makes you a Super Bowl contender. Do you know what this fan base would do if you went out and got Kirk Cousins? Listen, we had borderline prime Cousins. I think probably the second year after he left Washington was his best year of his NFL career. So we were heading into his prime and we let him walk. He still holds almost every Washington record known to mankind for this organization. And yet the fans will still tell you trash. Could never win here. So you think going and getting him would satisfy a lot of these fans? You're right. The pitchforks and torches would be out immediately. 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 Let's see. Samuel Brito. Writes, Both the Eagles and Cowboys will be on the couch before the end of MLK Day. I made that statement earlier, and I do believe that to be the case. If there's one team that doesn't, well, first of all, realistically, I think both teams are going to win in the first round. I could see Philadelphia losing to Tampa, but Baker's so banged up, and I just don't trust what I'm seeing from them right now. That even a garbage Philadelphia team right now, I don't know if the Bucs are going to exploit the weaknesses that the Eagles have right now. But no matter who they play in the second round, I think both teams lose in the second round, Dallas and Philadelphia, if they make it out of the first round. But I would have felt a lot more comfortable had the Saints won that division and they would have ate the Eagles' ass alive, ate them up. But Baker Mayfield he got ribs. He hurt his ankle in this game. He barely made it through the game. They can't really run the ball. They don't score a lot of points. So everything that the Eagles are struggling with, the Bucs aren't going to exploit. So here's the thing, though. Todd Bowles is notorious for blitzing the draws off of teams, and the Eagles can't stop anybody from blitzing them right now. And with no A.J. Brown and potentially no Devontae Smith, who's stopping you from blitzing them right now? Quez Watkins? I forgot his real name because I told y'all when they got him, they weren't getting Julio Jones. They were getting Quintorris. Quintorris ain't hurt nobody. Ain't nobody afraid of Quintorris. Ain't nobody afraid of Quez Watkins. So, yeah, they're in trouble. But I can see them beating the Bucs, and I can see the Cowboys getting by Green Bay. But it wouldn't shock me if both of them were on the couch by MLK Day. We were all listening to the "I Have a Dream" speech together on Monday afternoon. Wouldn't shock me in the least. Buffalo pregame, right? Easy win, not stressful at all. I don't know if you're talking about tonight or next week, but I think you're being sarcastic. It's never easy with y'all, it seems like. Last week against the Patriots wasn't easy, but family business is never supposed to be easy. Who are we kidding, right? Especially on the road. Samuel Brito asked, whose collapse was worse, Jags or Eagles? Is that really a question? One made it to the playoffs, the other didn't. The expectations for the Eagles were a little bit different. They were viewed as a Super Bowl contender. So their fall from grace has been a little bit more surprising and definitely more precipitous, but it still made it to the playoffs, right? They just didn't win the division. So a little, alarming, but Jacksonville literally collapsed to the point where they didn't even make the playoffs. Forget about winning the division. They allowed the Steelers, who were coming off of a 3-game losing streak at one point, who had to win their final 3, if I'm not mistaken. They had to beat Cincinnati, then they beat Seattle, and then they beat Baltimore to get in, and you let them run the table essentially and get in. No, I mean, it's the Jags for sure. They were 8-3. You can't lose to Tennessee at home. No, I'm thinking about Miami. I'm mixing up my two teams. I'm talking about Miami now. But they lost. They had some bad losses too. Jacksonville did. But it's the Jags because at least the Eagles made the playoffs. Buffalo pregame, right? Allen had like 16 turnovers. We got to do better than that. How many red zone trips until Hardy finally did something for the Bills? Look, we talked about it already. You were 2 of 5. And at one point you were 1 of 4. And it wasn't until the Hardy touchdown that you got the last possession in the red zone and you scored the touchdown. But prior to the Hardy punt return, you were 1 of 4 with 3 turnovers in the red zone, including the stop right before the half. So it was bad. Man, I talked about it already. It was bad. And if you want to beat good teams, and not saying that the Dolphins aren't a good team, but if you want to beat good teams, you're going to have to bring it much better than that shit. You can't be doing that and expecting to beat Baltimore. Hell, even Kansas City, yeah, they ain't shit, but they still got Super Bowl championship pedigree. You bring that shit to their doorstep, you're going to lose, right? Houston, like even Houston, like you do that shit to the Texans and you might not make it out alive. Like you're going to have to tighten the hell up. That's for damn sure. For sure. Let's see. Samuel Brito writes, you saw Wentz today? Why he couldn't do that in week 17 last year? Because he was broken last year in week 17. We broke that man. Just like we did Sam Howell. We broke him. I told y'all don't listen to me, right? I told y'all we failed Carson Wentz before Carson Wentz failed us. That man was balling at the beginning of the season in the first 2 games. He was balling. And then, yeah, he struggled at the beginning of the Lions game, but he rallied, put us in a position, and the defense couldn't get stops when we needed them to. And then Chase Rouillet got hurt with the second to last play when the game was already over. And then that shit rolled over into the next week. And then all of the garbage dudes that they brought in from Carolina started to break down. And then the line as a whole just deteriorated right in front of our face. And the shit became a shit show up front. And then he got shell-shocked, and then the rest is history. What I want to know is, you saw the touchdown to put them within 1, and then they went for 2 and got it. Where the hell was that Carson Wentz mobility last year? What the F, bro? He had cement in his shoes last year. We couldn't even ask this man to run 2 yards up the field. He looked like he had a broken leg when he tried to run last year. The man ran a quarterback draw from like the 10-yard line and scored. Bro, what the F? That's the shit. The passes and that shit ain't got, I'm not even worried. The shit that got me mad is, bro, what happened to the athleticism? There was none last year. 0. I couldn't even ask this man to avoid a pass rusher and get outside the pocket and extend. He couldn't even do that last year. Remember in week 5 against the Bears, we ran a read option and he kept that bitch and he got to outside. Bro, I swear he looked like the hefty lefty Jaron Lorenzen. Like he looked like he was about 400 pounds. I'm like, that ain't the Carson Wentz I saw in Indy last year. That dude had mobility. What the hell? And he was healthy. We had a healthy Wentz, supposedly. I beg to differ. There's no way he was healthy. Couldn't have been. Couldn't have been. Zoe Life, No Life said they really went behind Dennis Allen's back for that Arthur Smith debacle, LOL. Bad look either way for DA. He a lame duck coach next year, and he might have lost the locker room. That was a bitch move by Dennis Allen, because I don't know if you watched it live. I watched it live, right? When they scored the touchdown, I was like, oh, shit. So all game long, they were talking about the rivalry. And, you know, my wife lived in Atlanta for years, and she said of all the teams in that division, the biggest rivalry is between New Orleans and Atlanta. And she's like, anytime those two would play in Atlanta, it was a big deal when the Saints would come to town. So I'd imagine that it's the same way when the Falcons go to New Orleans, right? So it's a big rivalry game within that division. And it was, you know, obviously they needed help from Carolina, which they weren't going to get. But the winner of that game had a chance to win the division. So there was a little bit on the line. it was close early, and then it got away from Atlanta late, and it got away from them pretty bad because it was 41-17. Needless to say, for those of you who aren't aware of what we're referring to, late in the game, the Saints got the football on the 1-yard line with a chance to score another touchdown, but the game was already over. There was less than 40 seconds to go, and so a knee simply taken would have ended the ball game, and they would have won the game 41-17. Instead, Jamal Williams, who came from Detroit last year as a free agent and led the league with rushing touchdowns, hadn't had a single rushing touchdown all season. So the Saints players wanted to get him in the end zone. So they agreed to hand him the football out of the victory formation. They gave it to him. He scored. All the players were excited for him. Arthur Smith. So this is the thing. And I sent out a tweet when it happened. Like, bro's going to try to spaz. And I knew he was going to do this. He going to spaz at this handshake at midfield. But this ain't even about the extra touchdown. Like, if this was his first year and they got it put on him like that, he might have been salty, but he would have shook his hand and he would have stored that shit in the memory bank. And he was like, if we get a chance, we're going to bust their ass and we're going to run it up. And I'm going to make sure we get some get back, right? Or that's a rallying cry next year when you play New Orleans. Remember the shit they did to us at the end of last season? We ain't forget, right? Like, that's bulletin board material for you next year. But it's for him, it ain't no next year. This is it. And this is the last image I have. And so I'm pissed off already because Desmond Ridder effed my entire season up. He stunk it up again, made poor decisions, turned it over. We had a chance to win this game. He could have potentially saved my job. We win this game, and even if we don't make the playoffs, but we win this game, I might still have a job. He goes out here, stinks it up. I'm getting fired. And now it's more about I'm mad because I'm getting fired. But there ain't shit I can do about that. But what I can do is I can let off a little bit of this steam. So I'm going to come out here, and I'm going to cuss you slam out. And I'm talking about it was F you, F this. That was fucking bullshit. Like, he went off on him. And Dennis Allen, bitch ass, I know, I'm sorry. I know. You have every right to be mad. Like, I'm like, DA, you a bitch. Like, stand 10 toes down in your shit, man. Either you was complicit in that with your players or they went behind your back and did it. Either way, you supposed to hold it down for your squad. He's like, I know. I'm so sorry. You have every right to be mad. You a bitch. You might know you was wrong, but your players, they got to know at all times my coach got our back. And so if he want to spaz, he get one apology like, bro, you right, you got it. And then when you turn around and you point that second time, man, take your bitch ass in the locker room. You don't like it? Stop us. That after you get one apology from me, and if you still want to talk cold hard cash, we can take it there. But Dennis Allen took the high road, and I don't know how that's going to go over in his locker room. Again, I don't know if he even knew they were going to do that. I would like to think that he was complicit in that he knew what they were going to do. You can't just go out on the field and do some shit like that without the coach's consent, because he knows the blowback is going to come to him. So if you're going to do that, you got to get his blessing first. You can't be on some Jair Alexander shit and just decide I'm going out for the coin toss and I'm a captain because I'm in my hometown. Like, you can't just do random shit on the field. So I'm pretty sure he gave them the green light. Yeah, now y'all go ahead and do that. And if you gonna get him the green light, then when the other coach spaz on you, because what did you think he was gonna do? You can't then bitch up. You got to stand 10 toes down for your squad. You don't like it, stop us. You mad? I don't give a damn if you mad. That's why your bitch ass about to get fired. Like, it could have got real ugly, but he's a nice guy. Dennis Allen is a nice guy. So it is what it is, man. Zoe Life, No Life writes, I would love to have Jameis as a backup. That man is hilarious. We need some funny dudes in the locker room. Players not having fun on our team, even when we a young team. Need dogs. I don't want Jameis on our team. He is a funny guy, but we don't need funny guys. We need winning is fun. That's what's fun. Winning is fun. Losing sucks. You want young guys to have fun? Win. Have some swag. You want swag? Like, we swagless. We don't have no dudes with swag on our team for real. You know that. Like, that's what Rivera wanted. He wanted a group of military, a football team full of military kids, full of dudes with, good class and good, clean, wholesome, kids, right? We don't have no swag for real, right? Our dudes don't dance. We don't we don't have swag. So it's not a surprise. But you know what is fun? Winning is fun. Win and all of that other shit will take care of itself. Guys will have fun. Anyway, I digress. Mike Jink writes, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how much you like our chances in Tampa? I'm at a 6.5. Yeah, I like your chances. I'll say it's about a 7. I like your chances in Tampa. You got the right team. I'm telling you, if it was New Orleans, I'd give you a 3. You were going home first round. Tampa is exactly what you need to get your shit together, to not get bounced in the first round. But stranger things have happened. But I told y'all what was going to happen, right? Did you watch my show on Friday when I gave you my money picks of the week? I said this Giants game is going to be exactly like Washington playing Dallas last year. Was it not? Thoroughly dominated in a game that you needed to get right. Everybody's going to be talking tomorrow about the Eagles and, oh my God, the sky's falling, and then you're going to go to Tampa and beat the brakes off those boys, just like Dallas did Tampa Bay last year. I told you what's going to happen already. One of these days, y'all will start listening to me. I don't get everything right. But most things that I say about teams in this division be spot on. Tell me I'm wrong. Max Custom Kicks. You think after the loss versus the Giants and how embarrassing it was, Sirianni might get fired if there's a first-round Eagles exit, which is possible? Hell no. I think you meant probable. That would be akin to them firing Doug Peterson, which I still think was a mistake. If they do that, then their front office and their organization is more dysfunctional than people. I already told y'all the Eagles shit. Like I swear people be dick riding the Eagles organization, especially Washington fans. Like, I'm like, just 2 years ago, they had one of the worst organizations. There was a whole athletic article written on how dysfunctional Jeffrey Lurie was and how he thinks he's this football guru and he's this draft evaluator, and Howie Roseman was just in the draft war room trying to high five one of the other, executives, and that dude didn't even want to give him dap because they traded back and didn't get the dude that they were supposed to get. And I think it was Aleem McNeil, who all the other evaluators wanted. He traded back one spot too far, and the Detroit Lions took Aleem McNeil out of NC State. And he was still excited about the guy that they ultimately got. And I think the guy ended up playing. He's playing really well for them, actually. Forgot his name, but it's another defensive tackle. And he's playing well. But I'm like, y'all on they jock too hard, man. They shit dysfunctional. They just winning. Winning cures all. I can't tell you that shit enough. But they shit dysfunctional too. They not firing Sirianni. And if they did, I think it's another mistake by that organization. And I wouldn't be shocked because they do stupid, impulsive shit in Philadelphia sometimes. But anyway, we'll see what happens. I don't see him getting fired even if they get bounced in the first round. But I don't see them getting bounced in the first round. So anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the final installment of the regular season Sunday Night Football overtime. We'll come back. We'll spit it tomorrow. We'll have a LouieTeeNetwork podcast, which will lay out everything. As a matter of fact, I don't know if we'll have a podcast tomorrow because what I am going to do, we'll see. We'll see how the day goes tomorrow because I'm assuming Ronald Rivera gets fired and I'll be live for that. But I will be live after the college football playoff championship game. I'm gonna jump on live after that, and we'll chop it up and talk about what we saw in that game, because that could be Harbaugh's last game at Michigan. And obviously, we're all watching Michael Penix Jr. and seeing if he can complete this magical season that he's turned in this year. But and what that might potentially do for his draft stock. You know, if he goes out and shreds this Michigan defense, which has been the best defense in college football all season long, what does that do for his draft stock? So we'll have some things to discuss. I'll be live after that game, and we'll see what happens with Black Monday. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do a podcast just off the strength of Black Monday, because I expect 3 or 4 more dudes to get canned. We already got Arthur Smith, and I expect at a bare minimum 2 to 3 more guys. I don't know if the Belichick decision, it doesn't feel like that's a decision that gets done on Black Monday. I think Belichick might get drug out until like Wednesday, Thursday. Like I don't see them rushing to a decision on his fate and future. But Arthur's gone. Eberflus could be gone tomorrow. Rivera will be gone tomorrow or today on the East Coast. And you may see 1 or 2 more guys get the axe tomorrow too. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys. Buffalo Bills completed the comeback. Not just in this game, which they won 21-14, but the comeback of being 6-6 and seemingly left for dead by most pundits, winning 5 straight that included this Week 18 contest on the road at Miami to complete the comeback and winning the division at 11-6, their 4th straight AFC East title, as they now are your 2 seed heading into the AFC playoffs, where they will host the Pittsburgh Steelers in Wild Card Weekend. It is a remarkable turnaround after, as I mentioned, being left for dead after the overtime loss to the Eagles, dropping them to 6-6 on the season. No one gave them a chance. I did. And I told you that they were not only going to make the playoffs, that they were going to come back, win the division, and I told you they were going to the AFC Championship game. Check. 1 more check to go. 2 checks down, 1 check to go. Dolphins, despite the loss, are still in. They will be heading to Kansas City as the 6th seed to take on the Chiefs. In past years, death sentence. This year, not so much. Don't see the Dolphins going there and winning, but anything's possible. These are not your father's Chiefs. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. You guys, get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I look forward to chopping it up with you guys next time. Until then, y'all take care. God bless. Good night.